Hello, hello, hello. My name is Daniel, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 58. Hope you guys are doing well today. I am doing absolutely great. I have my in-laws in town here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's been great. I'm about to take a week off of work, or at least try to take a week off of work. So I'm looking forward to that and coming back refreshed from that as well. So it's good in this house. Well, before I get into the episode, let me give a shout out to our top tier supporters. Thank you so much to John Ott and Leroy Jenkins for your support of the podcast. $10 a month gets you a shout out at the beginning of every single episode of the podcast, and it helps me pay for things like my website, www.engringsuccess.com, and my email, where you can contact me if you're interested in showing up on the podcast or you have a question that you'd like me to address on an episode of the podcast in a mailbag episode. Haven't gotten many questions lately, so looking forward to getting a couple more questions. But yeah, it's thank you so much, John and Leroy, for supporting the podcast. All right, looks like we have a cat that's trying to join in on the podcast. He may make a little bit of an appearance across the screen. You know what? Let's just bring him on in here. This is a Bailey sighting. For those of you that are watching in the video format, Bailey's doing all right. He's a big brother now. Um, he's been a big brother for a while, but he's a big brother for a human. Baby E is doing great. We're at 8 months now. It's crazy how exciting it is to hang out with a little one. It's I just absolutely love being a dad. So it's been a great experience so far. All right. Well, that was your intro and a little bit of update on my life. Uh, this podcast episode is a really cool interview with Johnathan Meade. I think you guys will enjoy it. So, without any further ado, I'll kick you over there. My guest on today's podcast is the Chief Operating Officer at Meade Engineering, an engineering consulting firm known for their successful design of electrical engineering infrastructure across the U.S. Speaking of across the U.S., they just expanded into Austin, Texas, so congratulations. Now, when I was introduced to Johnathan as a potential guest of the podcast, I was really excited about his unique perspective that he could offer to the podcast. It's a unique one, and the answer is, well, he has many degrees, but none of them are actually in engineering. Now, he shares my passion for economics as he graduated from Arizona State University with a Bachelor of Science in Economics, and he has his MBA in Finance from Pepperdine. He started his career working for the family business, Meade Engineering, working his way through the organization to become a project manager. Now, after an 8-year hiatus, or maybe a little bit more than just a hiatus, if it's 8 years, in finance, working for Charles Schwab, he returned to Meade Engineering, where he is now their Chief Operating Officer. I am so grateful today that Johnathan has lent me a little bit of his busy time, his time and his busy schedule, share his career journey. Johnathan, how are you doing today?
Hey, Daniel, I'm doing great. And thank you so much for the intro. I'm really excited to be here and share my story.
Perfect. So, what was your day like, or how's your week been going?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely been another action-packed week for me. That's a typical thing. I've, you know, uh, typical coordination across my team and both my customers. I have an 11-month-old son as well, so he gets me up early and keeps me up relatively late. So yeah, I would say there's just enough time for me to kind of sit back and relax, at those various moments throughout the day, but most of it's honestly just super busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can relate to you on that. I have a 7-month-old daughter. So yeah, we just finished that 7-8 month sleep regression. I'm sure there's more coming, but I can relate to you on the not enough time in the day. Definitely not enough time for sleep. That's for sure. Yeah. So speaking of kids, so when you were a kid, you grew up with your dad, right, running the company Meade Engineering. So I read somewhere that when you were little, though, you dreamed of becoming a fighter jet pilot, which is not engineering. But did you ever aspire to become an engineer like your dad?
It's I think yes and no, and I think it is one of those things where it's like if you're part of a family business or you're having influence from your parents, like most children do, I think it's natural for any kid to view what their parents do and say, you know what, I feel almost an obligation to do that, right? Or to at least respect it or be a part of what it is that they've done to provide for their family. So I think that's always been there for me, no matter what. But I, earlier in my career, I don't know if it's fair to say that I was always destined to become an engineer. I think where I was actually a much more natural fit was on the business school side of things. I'm very, very happy that I did decide to pursue that, because had I gone down the path formally of engineering from the get-go, I don't know if I would have ever broken out and gained some of the experience that I've had in some of these more diverse and dynamic roles just within the business world. So it's a great question, which is why I answered yes and no, because you just got that family influence, but at the same time, you do have to do what it is that you're passionate about, and I would really recommend that to anybody.
I'm glad that you said that, and I think that's a great answer. So for you, was your passion economics? Did you know that you wanted to study economics when you chose Arizona State? And if so, why?
Yeah, it was. I think I had a finite interest in capital markets, how money moved, how our economies functioned together, overall business knowledge and expertise was something that I just felt like I needed to know more about. And I was raised by an entrepreneur and who founded a company, and I think that's always been in my blood. I've heard from others too that apple doesn't always fall far from the tree when it comes to that entrepreneurial spirit, which seems to be pretty consistent the more I look around. But I I think, with my dad, he's an amazing engineer. But he didn't go to business school. And it was almost like, if I think this is my calling. I think this is where I can kind of expand my knowledge beyond what would be typical for me just following that same path. And I knew that running a business was just as important as being the expert within the business. I think I had maybe a little bit of early insight on that. And my career trajectory kind of shows how not only did I go and get an economics degree from Arizona State, but then I felt like I had to go and get my investment advisor licenses from Charles Schwab. And then I went and got an MBA concentrated in finance. So I'm like, I'm either lucky for punishment or I'm actually passionate about it, which I think is the latter. Yeah.
Makes sense. So you never ever considered taking the engineering route or pursuing an engineering degree. Did you take any engineering related electives along the way at all, or?
I'm glad you asked. I did. My very first semester at ASU, because I was a little unsure, I was very indecisive. Again, back to that same family pull, personal passion. It's a tough decision to make at that age. And I did go through, I think, 2 electives of engineering courses at ASU while simultaneously going to the business school to figure it out. It was very clear to me. I'm like, okay, this is where I want to be. And hopefully I'm not making the wrong decision at the time.
It seems like, looking back, though, you made the right decision. So I ask a question related to right decisions all the time, is related to what kind of student you were. What kind of student were you in college versus high school? Were you a pretty good student, or were you not as passionate about that?
Yeah. I worked at Meade Engineering full time through college. I literally stacked my classes as much as possible on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes Saturdays. So was I, was my goal to be valedictorian at ASU? Definitely not. And I think that would have been great. And I think I respect anybody who does put in that level of effort into their academics, but it just wasn't as much of a priority at the time, for me to go so above and beyond. I think the capability's there. I think that the discipline could have been there, but it came down to priorities and time management. I'm going to I'm going to give that 80% on this to make sure that I get through and don't have additional expenses that I don't need to have as a result of not putting in enough effort. So I would say that, yeah, I'm kind of that classic, like, I'm doing just enough to kind of get through this, but I'm not trying to go and like, make a big academic statement about how good I am at school. But no disrespect to people who do.
Yeah, makes sense. So it sounds like you were really busy during college, working and also working full time, probably, or close to full time, and also being a full time student. Did you have the chance to get involved in anything else, or was it really just kind of work, school, let's get this over with and move on with my career?
Yeah, that's a little bit of sometimes I look back at my life and I'm like, man, I wish I would have gotten a little bit more involved with meeting other students or clubs or fraternities. Like I wasn't a part of Greek life. Just really focused on helping grow this business here and setting myself up for the next thing that I mean, I got to socialize a bit, but it was never really the top priority. So sometimes I think back and I'm like, boy, had I, maybe got a little bit more involved, how would that impact me today? Maybe I got a bigger Rolodex of people that I can call and hang out with, but that's okay. I mean, I'm still, I still have friends.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Is there a particular class that's stuck with you since then?
Probably my capstone. I mean, there was a couple, and speaking just to ASU, my capstone class, I think, was probably one of the more meaningful classes. And maybe there's two. There's one where I met my wife, so that has to stick out, of course.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, of course, yeah.
At ASU, so that's amazing. But my capstone class instructor, I thought was pretty cool. He told something that I've never forgot, and I've tried to stay disciplined to, is just being conscientious of the emotion that you inject into your business decisions, right? Make it a conscientious effort to routinely identify what those emotions are, what are they driving within your decision, and making sure that you're removing it appropriately, right? And using more of a framework to help you get to a decision on something tough. And I think it was just a few words that he said it right at the end of our class too. And I'm like, he's right. Like we make so many decisions in our lives that are driven by how we feel. And I do believe that there's a place for that in business. We have to have compassion. We have to have empathy in certain instances. But at the same time, too, we have to be able to make the tough ones, and we have to be decisive and move fast. So the more you can do that and balance that, I think the more successful you can be and move on for some of these things that might hang you up or make you lose sleep at night or get you riled up. So that's what really stuck out to me.
That's a great insight, and I'm sure you've applied it a lot in your career. Let's talk a little bit about that career. You said that your career kind of started while you were in school. So what was your first job working for the family business?
Yeah, so I was an electrical drafter. I actually was in high school at the time, and I was basically tasked with working underneath some of the project managers, some of which are still here today, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And if I were to get tactical about it, I was given like construction plans on paper, and they were marked up like with pens on what needs to change in order to move this construction document package forward to what we call a permit set. And I would read those red lines, as we call them, and then I would adjust our AutoCAD drawings on the computer to reflect those red lines as best as possible. And over time, it was expected that I would continue to kind of be able to interpret, maybe redline myself, catch additional mistakes and errors, and ultimately get that to a place where a contractor can go build off of it. So I was like really directly involved with the production of electrical construction document packages kind of from the get-go, and did that for a long time.
Wow. And did you enjoy it? I mean, you didn't end up studying electrical engineering, but it seems like you liked it enough that you ended up working 8.5 years on your first stint with the family business, and you culminated up to being a project manager.
Yeah, I know. I think I did. I think I did really, and there are aspects of it that I really enjoyed, for sure. I mean, there's something tangible about this business that few other industries have. Um, we we put together a set of construction documents, and like that is going to be part of the built environment. Like there are plenty of examples just here in our backyard in Phoenix that you could drive by and say, "Oh, that was something that I contributed to, right? That's something that I was a part of, right, amongst many other people in order to make it happen." Maybe you get to drive by it on your commute to work every single day. It's like a very fulfilling thing about this industry. Whereas sometimes it feels like you get caught in this monogamous wheel of continuity or redundancy in the way that you operate, but this is always a little different, right? Every project's got its own quirks. So I did very much enjoy it. And moving into with the data center world, which is on the latter half of my career, is where things got really interesting. So I started moving out of projects that were more commercial oriented or industrial or manufacturing, that type of stuff. And it got into this very early stages of the critical data center infrastructure that's supporting everything that we're doing today from a technology standpoint. That's where things got really, really, really exciting. And in college, where my contributions to work started to really be more focused, and school was more of like okay, we got to get this done, so that I can continue doing what I'm doing here. So, it's a long-winded answer to, the answer is yes. I do enjoy them aspects, not all of them, but I do enjoy them.
So what were you doing when you graduated with your economics degree? What were you doing at that time?
Yeah. So one of my main areas of project management was what we classify as data center load management. So what that means is after you go and build a data center, particularly data centers that are shared, what we call co-location data centers, not an enterprise one that a company builds for just themselves. Okay, check. Yeah. And I'm on the Engineering Success podcast. I should have explained that. Right. So I was overseeing the production and the load planning of data centers anywhere from square footage standpoint of 200,000 to 400,000 square feet in multiple. So, customers were coming in, they were buying up bulks of power, and we would plan all the electrical distribution down to the cabinet level of where the servers plug into and track all the loads, make all the load planning decisions about where we deploy extra capacity and where we might have additional capacity that can be utilized, cutovers if necessary, and also for the mechanical side too. Because once you ramp up on the electrical, of course, the cooling has to come with that and in tandem. So yeah, I don't know how many, call it deployments of customers and power. I have to go and tally all of that up, but it's quite a bit. And it is still operating today. And many of the tools that I had built during that time frame are still being utilized kind of in our office today, which is pretty cool. On how we analyze an existing data center and how we make decisions on where we're going to deploy additional capacity based on how the customer decides to deploy. Yeah.
That's cool. So you're not only just building the data center, but you're also helping them optimize how they make business decisions for their data center. That's cool. So that's kind of economics right there. So at this point, totally. you graduated, you have your economics degree, you're working as a project manager, but in the back of your head, I imagine there's this thought that's growing saying, well, I went to school for economics. I'm interested in business and finance. Maybe I should pursue that. So what was happening there that eventually led to you leaving the company and going off on your own?
Yeah. I mean, it was almost precisely a year after I graduated.
Okay.
That I left. Yeah. Pretty close. And I think it was time for me. There are a couple of reasons. So if I'm getting relatively personal too, I feel like, um, I've worked for the family business for 8 or 9 years, right? That's what I knew, right? That's what I was kind of known to do, sort of expected to do, right? And I could have worked there for another 20 years, but I felt like I had something to prove, to be honest, Daniel. I felt like that was a part of it. Like I needed to go and pursue some of my own personal passions. I wanted to cut my own trail. I wanted to go make my own name for myself in an industry, and maybe prove to myself, maybe I'm proving it to my family, maybe I'm proving it to others. I don't fully know that this isn't the only thing that's gonna, or how should I say this? I'm not dependent on Meade Engineering to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm just not, right? And I'm not even today, right? This is just what I want to do, right? This is just what I'm passionate about, and where I feel like my life has brought me, and where I'm going to put my heart in this year. So I think that was a big aspect of it after college. I said, you know what? I just went and got this degree in this financial kind of economic realm. I'm going to go pursue it, and I'm going to see how far I can take it. And I made the plunge, I guess I should say, of totally shifting careers and kind of proving to myself that this is something I want to do.
Yeah. So you did that by going to Charles Schwab. How'd you find your job there? And then what was your career progression like at Schwab?
Yeah. So I'm not a stereotypical like engineering personality, right? I really do enjoy people, appreciate people, always have. And well, talking with some mentors in my life at the time, making this transition, it seemed like financial advising could be a good fit for me, right? I could become an advisor. And honestly, my goal was like maybe 2 years at a financial institution that I'm going to leave and start my own financial advising practice. And that's going to be what I do for the rest of my career. Yeah, you'll see as we go through this, Daniel, there's been like 2 or 3 like entrepreneurial offshoots this year. Yeah, that was the whole game plan. And so I knew I was interviewing. Didn't particularly care what job I had. I just wanted to do something. And I had heard good things about Charles Schwab, but they were willing to bring me in just as a unregistered broker, as they call it. And I felt like that was a good cultural fit. And I think that's true still today. Like I fit in with that group really well. I have a ton of respect for them. And so I made the decision. I was talking with other financial institutions that were interested, and I was interested too, but Schwab ultimately, I think, gave me the platform that I needed in order to build a foundation of financial services knowledge. And so I went with it.
Wow. Yeah. So what'd you start? What was your first title that you had with them? And then what was your title whenever you left?
So I think I was a financial services professional is what they were calling it at the time, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the call center. Like I'm just like on the first person you call on the 4,000th line when you call Charles Schwab, and one of the thousands of people that do that. And then I got my Series 7, and then I was like a registered financial services professional, like a broker. I can't remember they changed the names all the time, so I can't remember what the exact title was. And then I left as a director of digital product management.
Okay. Cool. And then somewhere in there you squeezed in an MBA. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, a couple of years in corporate finance, which is not like out on my, public resume or whatever. So I basically started as a call center rep.
Yeah.
I got my licenses. I quickly started my MBA right after my licenses, almost at the same time, because for whatever reason, I was thinking when I was studying for the Series 7, that was going to make me some financial wizard. But it didn't. I was like, no, okay, I'm totally missing like balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. And like, I learned a little bit about that in economics, but I'm trying to learn more. So went and got my MBA, applied at Pepperdine, got in, didn't apply anywhere else. I was like, I'm doing this. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. And so worked at Schwab full time while doing my MBA.
Wow.
And I know, man, it's a little glutton, but so I was doing really well at Schwab, like on this like sales kind of relationship manager like track. So they moved me in person to one of the branches, actually here in Phoenix, in Chandler. So then I was working face to face with clients, helping them with financial plans, like literally helping them make investment management decisions, helping them with service, right? Just being kind of like a associate advisor, so to speak. They call it a client relationship specialist, was the official title. So I stayed there until I graduated. Then the same month that I graduated from Pepperdine was the same month that I'd moved to San Francisco and started a job in what's called their central finance group that focused on capital stress testing. So like, went from the most outwardly facing role probably in the company, probably to the most inwardly facing role humanly possible, like in the corporate finance department at Schwab. So then I stayed there for about 2 years, doing financial analytics, doing forecasting on capital stress testing for Charles Schwab Corporation amongst a team. That's where I learned finance. Like I credit that group intensely to my ability to understand finance and accounting at a much more granular level. Like the MBA helps for sure, but then that really solidified it. By about 2 years of that, I was like, okay, I got exposed to some more strategy focused groups at Schwab, and I built some relationships there, and they're like, we really like your client facing experience. We really like your analytic experience. I think we can take these two things and put them together and have you work on a team that's more like an internal SWAT/consulting team that we got put on basically hot potato projects in for strategy and execution, which was amazing as well. And I stayed with that same group for the rest of my tenure at Charles Schwab. We just got moved around, like it just got progressively more and more digital to the point where my final project at Schwab before I left was building the data science and technology infrastructure behind the scenes for some model-based personalized financial advice that we were thinking about deploying to the masses. So like just a wild trajectory, Daniel, of jobs over that 8 to 9 years, which is pretty amazing. I know. Yeah.
That's cool. So but this whole time, I mean, so you're growing with Schwab and you said data science. I'm thinking data science sounds a lot like data center. So that's what I'm going to use as my transition. You just came from your family business. Well, not just came, but you had this really tight relationship with your family business, building data centers. You grew with Schwab, doing all these cool things. You have a really cool title. You've had a lot of rapid growth. And then you leave Schwab. So what was going on in the background that whole time? What was your relationship to the family business as you were going through that process?
Yeah. So I think what was in the background, I mean, me and my dad are close, and talk on a regular basis about what's happening in his world versus what's happening in my world. And I think, I think our relationship really started to evolve into adulthood, I guess, as I had left the company and then started on this journey at Charles Schwab. I think there was a degree of mutual respect as I was kind of doing all of these like new and interesting things. And so, but Meade Engineering was continuing to grow. It was continuing to intensify with some of the work that they were doing when it comes to the data center expansion, when it comes to the various types of commercial construction projects that were coming across the plate, it was like, okay, that's intensifying. But at the same time too, it was the family's plan of transitioning Meade Engineering to the next chapter was becoming more and more like at the forefront of like, okay, when I first left, maybe that wasn't a conversation that needed to happen. But then maybe by year 6 of me being at Schwab, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? What is my dad going to do? What is my mom? Like, what's our family going to do with this? We've got this now 30 something year old company that needs attention. and something kind of needs to happen. And that's where we kind of lead into the decision of me leaving Schwab and transitioning back to MEI.
Yeah. So you came back as the chief operating officer. You've been in that role since 2022. So how has that transition gone? Leaving Schwab, coming back and working for mom and dad.
Yeah. It's been an override. But amazing. And kind of leading into it, I was working a lot with my dad in the background about, hey, seeing what was kind of going on, wanting to protect the legacy of what everything Meade Engineering has set in the last 30 years, knowing the value of the team. I know the clients, right? They're also, like, hey, what's the game plan? What's the future look like? And so I had proposed my plan of what we would do in order to strategically address some of the I'll say, I don't really call them concerns necessarily, but some of the priorities around making sure Meade Engineering is set up for long-term success and has succession within it, right? There was a whole variety of tasks that needed to get done or projects that needed to get done, like modernizing IT, refreshing the brand, right? Establishing a different organizational hierarchy, modernizing software and systems, like line them up, knock them down is kind of the approach. And so making that transition, it's funny. I came in thinking that the business side was going to be where I'd primarily focus, at least for like the first year or something like that. And I feel like it lasted 2 months. So where I started getting back into the engineering side, that all that I had absorbed in the first part of my career started to come back like much more quickly. I was like, oh wow, I'm kind of a force here, I'm kind of a force there, right? I'm on the phone with the client, I'm helping them solve problems, I'm helping them do this, and quickly realized that I can't do it all, and that I'm going to need to get support on the business side to make sure that those things continue to move forward while I continue to do what's best for me in engineering, right? If I'm capable of executing on engineering projects, then that's where I need to focus, right? That's what we do, that's who we are. And so that was a huge, I think that's one of my biggest revelations, I would say, since returning, is thinking that I was going to be able to really plan out where I put my energy and my efforts, that is no longer in my power entirely.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're not just responsible for business operations, you're also, I guess, a little bit or a lot of it now in execution. What is your day-to-day like?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much responsible for the gamut. I mean, really, when it comes down to the execution of projects, obviously, multiple team members and stuff are involved in getting projects done, but every business function, it comes through me, from marketing to finance to operations, legal, all of that comes through me. And then I also run my own engineering projects as well. So really at this point, it's my dad's the whole goal is to make sure that he gets to focus on what he wants to focus on and what he's best at, and that's engineering. So there's really only kind of what what I want to elevate to him, and what I think is important for him to know from a business side is what gets brought to him. It's like, okay, here you go. Like these are some of the big decisions that I want to make. Let's hash these out. But from a day-to-day operational standpoint, fortunately, that's something I've been able to take off this point.
So you talked about you run your own projects. What are your favorite types of projects to work on? You talked a lot about data centers. Is it mostly data centers? Is there a type of data center that's the most exciting kind of data center? What's your favorite kind of project?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm like they're all equally as intense. But I think so we do commissioning as well, and that commissioning can be a pretty good way to kind of round out engineering knowledge that allows you to go, go on site and go through the integrity testing of power system or mechanical system that your team has designed. And, maybe you get to go to a place or something like that, and you get to meet people in person and be part of a strong banded team. That's like, we've got a goal and we've got a mission, and everybody's really motivated and willing to pursue that and get it all done. So those are really fun when you have those milestones of when you completed something successfully. You can't replace those kinds of things. But I also really enjoy the early stages of like new conceptual designs. So when we are coming up with a new, better way to do something, I think that's kind of in my DNA of just being excited to take on something new, something representative of our brand, something that excites our customers. Like, I'm excited with you, right? Like I want to help you achieve this goal. So I think the newness as well as the in-person kind of boots on the ground are my favorite types of projects.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about Meade Engineering, and I've just realized we never really said what is Meade Engineering. So maybe could you give could you give an overview of what you define your company to be?
Yeah, for sure. So we are at the core, designers, right, of the built environment. We are helping our commercial construction industry get things done and get them done well and get them done efficiently, with quality engineering solutions, both electrically and mechanically. We also are very much a design coordinator. So we work with sub-design partners to pull together the whole gamut of design disciplines that are needed in order to execute a project. So architectural, structural, civil, fire protection. We are what we call a prime engineer when it comes to that. And are fortunate to be in a position where the industry that we support, the data center industry, mechanical and electrical, kind of wag the dog a bit. And so we really get to play that quarterback position and getting this stuff done on behalf of our clients. And it's awesome. Like, it's awesome to be in that position. We wouldn't be in that for things like apartment buildings or retail shopping centers, right? But in this data center world where we're building for the cloud and AI and stuff, we are squarely. And I think that is just something that gets a lot of us like out of bed and motivated today as, we're aspiring to be the best leaders we can be in our industry.
Yeah. You're right. It's such a powerful industry and a great industry to be a part of right now. I feel like it's so central to what every single person experiences life. It's funny. I have a friend that is a software engineer that works in the cloud, and our favorite running joke is to ask him to explain the cloud to us. So that's where my knowledge of the different types of data centers has come from, the ones that are either wholly owned or shared. And so that's why I was nodding my head so excitedly. So shout out Brian for explaining that concept to me and making me not be completely confused whenever you talk about that. But as chief operating officer, and again, you said you mentioned that you do projects. So you deal with a lot of engineers in leadership roles, engineers at all phases in their career, and probably a lot of engineers that also you have to deal with on an operational level and make like leadership decisions and that kind of stuff. What are some characteristics of the most successful or the most effective engineers that you've observed as a leader of engineers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. Because I have made some observations.
Yay, I'm ready for them.
Yeah. So the best engineers, in my opinion, are accepting and respectful that there are other engineering disciplines that also have to operate, right? Like, I think the worst thing that an engineer can do is think that their one thing is the most important. Everybody on a design team is important. We all have to come together and we all have to have healthy debate and collaboration in order to execute on behalf of the ultimate goal of making our customers successful. So that's a quality that I am always looking for. Two, leadership. If an engineer has some consciousness around what their leadership style is, how they want to pursue it. Leadership is a skill. I strongly believe that. And it can be learned. You just have to be willing to learn. So a willingness to take on some of that leadership capability and finding your foundation on that is a differentiator 9 times out of 10, right? And then also, I would just say from a technical aptitude standpoint, this is more probably on me, just making sure that I find the right types of engineering work that fits with the passion and the technical expertise of the engineer that I'm hiring. So what I mean is I could hire a mechanical engineer, let's say, that has worked on manufacturing products. They may be interested in wanting to come over to the construction side, which is great, and we would love to have that conversation, but they need to make sure that they know what they're getting into and that I have the resources to be able to get them to where they need to be. So I think that's that's more like a two-way street, but engineers who can recognize that and say, be humble, but you know what, that's not really my wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
I can learn it, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, it is I feel like the engineers that work on construction projects, and then I work for an EPC. So it's a different brand and a different approach to engineering for sure. And I don't know if everybody really realizes that, but when you work in the industry, you definitely come to understand that. So we talked a little bit about like experienced engineers and leaders. What about entry-level engineers? Does Meade hire any entry-level engineers? Do you have any things that you look out for entry-level engineers, or advice that you have for people that are looking for their first job out of college?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we do. Is the answer. We're always, I think, looking for talented young engineers that who can see the value in this industry. I think there's a couple of different paths that engineering students can go. One of them is, kind of like I don't want to say like the big corporate route, but maybe there's that route of going towards, I want to work on a satellite NASA or something like that, right? As an electrical engineer, which is awesome. I think that's really, really cool. And that's important work. But I don't think that this industry gets probably all the credit that it deserves, when it comes to, how fulfilling a engineering career can be on the construction side of things. I mean, the career ramp up can be fast. Like, you can be just a few years out of college and be managing projects and be given the responsibility can put in the work, right? It's so like I said, so my recommendation to the younger students who are coming out is just keep an open eye. Um, make sure that you're really understanding all of your options and take into consideration this whole world of building the infrastructure that supports the cloud and AI, right? Like that's what we're doing. And I think the forecast for this looks pretty good. It's only continuing to increase for however many years we've been on this ride now. Yeah, there's just ample opportunity to learn a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because it's funny that you say that, because my little brother is at A&M right now. They just had their career fair, and he said the line to talk to NASA, yeah, just the company that you used as your example, was 4 hours long. So while all these other engineers were waiting for 4 hours to talk to NASA, he's like, I'm going to go talk to Kiewit. I'm going to go talk to all the different EPCs. I'm going to talk to the companies that manufacture lime to stabilize soil. And I'm over here just cheering them on, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell you what lime is. You're going to be the only non civil engineer that even knows what lime is. And I'm going to tell you about what it's like to work in construction and how you're going to get to learn hands-on. You're going to tell them that you're excited to work for an EPC because you get to work hands-on. And sure enough, while everybody else was waiting for NASA for 4 hours, he talked to 10 companies. So and you're right, it is so rewarding. I geek out about it, because what my company does is we do stuff related to the energy transition, so natural gas, and then stuff that they blend with natural gas to make power. And for me, that's the most exciting thing ever, because you need power. I need power, and I geek out about it. I'm sorry, I got all excited real quickly right there. But yeah, but building things that contribute to your day-to-day life is so cool, and I don't understand why so many people gloss over it. So I'm so glad that you said it. I'm sending this clip to my brother and all of his friends that didn't go and do what he did. So thank you for saying that. So I think you answered I asked about what advice you give to a young person considering a career in engineering. I think you hit on that one. What about this, though? You have a unique background as somebody that's not an engineer. What advice would you give to somebody that is not an engineer, that's considering working for an engineering company, either in a non-engineering role or maybe growing into a career in engineering? Is it okay? Are engineers okay to work with? Are we kind of scary?
No, it's a great look. I've got folks of very diverse backgrounds working at Meade Engineering, and I could tell you flat out that having a proper academic engineering background is not the only key to success in this field. It can be learned. I would tell anybody that it seems kind of like mysterious, daunting, right? In order to gain proficiency within an engineering field, but man, osmosis is a hell of a thing. Like, you can really absorb a lot. And if you work for a company with the right culture that can kind of embrace the fact that, oh my gosh, you don't have an engineering degree, well, then you must not be capable of understanding what I understand. Like, I could tell you right now, there's no tolerance for that in engineering, and that we're really looking for the right people who want to learn. They may have a more diverse academic background or something that they can contribute to us. And if you see that in you, right, there's a place, right? There's a place for you, and we will support you along the way so that you can be a part of this. And it's not like we just hire engineers too. I've got business roles, administrative, operational type roles too that support the engineers. So maybe it's like not a matter of you having to know how to calculate, loads on electrical equipment or something like that. You're capable of helping support the engineering teams in a very effective way that helps them be more successful. It's just as important. So engineering companies do marketing. Engineering companies do finance. Like, it's a professional services type of organization. So anybody who's done anything in an attorney's office or from an accounting firm, like, a lot of that stuff translates over to us. I just think that, and that's why it's so unique for me to be in this position right now, because I've had so much outside exposure that I can see all the opportunities here to make this industry and this type of business be represented in the proper way, what the real opportunity is. Like, you don't have to sit and kind of like hide behind the curtain of what we do. Like, this is exciting stuff. Like, we're growing and we're growing fast, and we're in a very specific niche in the economy right now where the majority of investment is happening. So I would just really, to anybody who's thinking about their career and stuff, just professional engineering, design related work is an area of huge opportunity right now.
Agree. And I think that's the perfect bow to put on this story that we've had here about your career journey, you being a non-engineer, but growing in and around engineering and getting involved in the operational aspects and project management, and sharing that, yes, anybody else can do it too. You can work your way into the industry. Thank you so much, Johnathan, for sharing your story. It is a different story than most of the other stories I've told, but it's such a great story and one that I was so excited to hear, and it definitely did not disappoint. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your time with us today, Johnathan.
Hey, Daniel, I couldn't appreciate your time more, and for you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me. And I look forward to touching base with you again in the future.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed filming it. If you did, please make sure to give this video a like if you're watching in video format. Leave a comment down below, say something that you liked, something that you didn't like, and make sure to also share the podcast with one of your friends as well. I got a cat in my face. Oh my goodness. Anywho, leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I'll make sure to read it out on the next episode of the podcast. And make sure you give me a support, and in the form of becoming a top tier supporter if you're able to do so. Anywho, this is the Engineering Success Podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.
I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated. I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries. Thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify. They put me on the station.